Good morning. So today we're going to look at domain and range and a little bit of graphing. So the domain, remember, is what x values can go into your function. So we'll learn some other ways to figure out the domain of different functions. So like if you had a linear function, usually domains of linear functions, you can plug in anything you want to for the x value. So the domain is usually from negative infinity to infinity. So same thing with quadratics usually is you can plug in anything you want to with a quadratic. So the domain is usually from negative infinity to infinity. So if you had a rational function, which we've talked about some, that's when you have a fraction. You can't have a zero in the denominator, so you've got some special cases there. So you're going to have a restricted domain. Also with a radical function, you're going to have a restricted domain. So we'll kind of talk about some of those later when we get into other things. So the range is the y values. So then what your y values are going to be. So after you plug in your domain, what is your output? So your domain is your input and your range is your output. Okay, so I want us to look at these graphs here. Okay, and I want us to look at the domain and the range. So this domain here, if I'm looking at the x-axis, and these graphs, it's a linear graph, so it's going to continue to go in both directions. So it's going to continue, continue, continue. So the domain here is going to be all real numbers, so it's going to be negative infinity to infinity. And the range, so on the y-axis, it's going to continue to go in the negative direction. It's going to continue to go up in the positive direction. So the range is also going to be negative infinity to infinity. Okay, so let's look at this one right here. So to find the domain, this is a quadratic here. So domain here, we're looking at the x-axis. So this is going to continue to go out. So it's just going to go out on the x-axis. So the domain here is negative infinity to infinity. And the range here, it has a stopping point down here. And if you see the stopping point right there, this is negative 10 right there. So this is going to be a negative 9. So it's going to stop down here, but it's going to continue to go in the positive direction. So it has a stopping point at negative 9. And then it's going to go in the positive direction. So it's going to go to positive infinity. All right, so that's domain and range. X and y intercept. So to find your x and y intercepts, x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. And so when it crosses the x-axis, that means that let y equal 0 and solve for x. Y-intercept is when it crosses the y-axis. So let x equal 0 and solve for y. These are ordered pairs always. They will be considered ordered pairs. So your x-intercept is going to be some x value, comma 0. Your y-intercept will be 0, comma whatever that y value is. Okay? All right. So Here, if I were to look at this graph here, the x-intercept is where it's going to cross the x-axis here. So it's going to cross the x-axis at, that's a 1, 2, so that's a 2, 0. It's going to cross the y, so where is it going to be a y-intercept? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be a 0, 4. So let's look at this one. So the x-intercepts, it crosses the x-axis in 2 places here. So an x-intercept is going to be, what's that, 1, 2, 3, so it's a -3, 0, and also 1, 2, 3, a +3, 0. And then the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, so it's down here. So that is a -9. Okay, so let's look here so let's find x and y intercepts. For this function. And let's find the x and the y intercepts here. So the x-intercept here is when you let y equal 0. So we're going to let y equal 0. So it's going to end up being 3x minus 0 equals 6. So we'll have 3x equals 6. So x is going to be equal to a 2. So that the x-intercept there is going to be 2, 0. The y-intercept is when you're going to let x equal 0. So this is going to be 3 times 0 minus y equals 6. So that just is a 0. So this is going to be a negative y equals a 6. So y is going to be equal to a -6. So this is going to be a 0, -6. Okay.